And most people stand with a little external rotation. You got to tell them to twist their toes in a little bit more. I like having a stick in my hand so I can whack them and get them in the position I want them to be in. Okay, you're going to hold the stick. Oh, just let it go there. Good. So you want to get them to hold the stick so it's touching their head and their elbows are at 90 degrees. You'll see we got 90 degrees there. And then just push the stick up over your head. Okay, then you just tell them to squat as low as they possibly can 3 times. Keep your heels on the ground and keep the stick over your head. Nice and slow.
Oh. That's painful.
Was it really painful?
I mean, oh, no.
See, this is the thing. I mean, kinesiology and athletes are very competitive, so, and she knows that if it's painful, she gets a 0. So. It's painful, no? Okay, do it 2 more times. So what have we noticed already? So see how I set her feet straight to start with? And look, they're not straight anymore.
Oh.
Okay, no, that's something that we know. So look, they've spun it again, right? She can't stop it. And that's good. So I've just noticed something. Okay, what else did we notice from the frontal plane? Anything else? Do we have any knees not tracking over? Yeah, maybe a little caving into the knees. And so one thing you have to, thank you for volunteering, by the way. Great. But Gray Cook, whenever he teaches these classes, this is what happens, right? Somebody gets in front and they start moving and he starts pointing out the compensations because that's how you learn, right? You need to see people doing it to see them. And then the person in the front always gets kind of, they get kind of defeated, right? Because he points out all these things that are wrong with their movement. But then Gray Cook always says, don't worry, bad movement does not make you a bad person. And it is, I tell people, and I'm going to try to explain this to the LA Kings next year when we do it, it's better for us to find something so that we can fix it versus you hiding it from me now so it builds up and causes an injury down the road, right? So you don't want to hide stuff from me here, because if you're very good at hiding stuff from me, that's something that might build up and cause an injury down the road, right? So we want to find stuff here. That's the point of this, right? We want to find things that are wrong. So if you find a way to hide it from me, then that could be bad, right? That could cause an injury down the road. So we want to find bad things. It's good to find it, right? You don't, what was that thing we said before? It's better to know what you don't know. If you don't know what you don't know, then you're screwed, right? Okay, so we saw some stuff from the frontal plane. She's not a 3, but we'll look from the sagittal plane as well. The same thing, turn your feet in, toes forward, good. Stick straight up, over your head, good. Keep the stick over your head, keep your heels on the ground. 3 squats, nice and slow. Okay, we got a lot of spine movement there. One thing, what do you think about? It's really baggy, it's hard to see, right? So if you could just like tuck it in for us. This isn't a fashion show, so don't worry.
I mean,
Found someone's phone in class.
Oh, somebody lose your phone? Back there. Yeah, just tuck it in all the way around. So you're like, yeah. Superman, exactly. Perfect. Okay, so that's what we do with the king, so we can see some movement. So obviously there's nothing in the FMS that talks about spine movement in this exercise, but I mean, to me, the second she puts that stick up over her head, she goes a little hyper, and then watch it move a little bit more. Don't try this.
Sorry, I know.
It's okay.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Wait, am I supposed to go down?
Yeah, it's through.
Yeah.
Okay, so it goes a little hyper, then it starts to tuck under at the bottom. So, and the stick comes a little bit forward. So definitely not a 3, right? We saw a lot of issues there. It was very jumpy. It wasn't very smooth. And so you know she's not a 3, so then you put the heels up on the board and do the same thing. Easier, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, do 3 for us, nice and slow. So I don't see quite the jerkiness, it's a lot smoother. She still has a little pelvic control issue, but looks a lot better, right? So come over here and do it from the frontal plane for me. So, I mean, you can just see the fluidness of the motion really improving, right? And so, what have we changed? What have we, like, what's different? So I always think of it as, say this is her shin and this is her foot. If she has this much dorsiflexion, that might not be enough to squat. So what we've done is we've given her high heels, right? We've taken her foot and put it in this position, so now she has this much. Okay, so if we take the foot and put it into plantar flexion, now that 10 degrees, if I put her, she has 10 degrees of dorsiflexion, and I put her into 30 degrees of plantar flexion. Well, now she has 40 degrees of dorsiflexion, right? So we've given her some like false dorsiflexion. Yeah.
So does that just mean that she has like tight calves?
It could. That's a very good hypothesis, but we're going to try to confirm that looking at all the other motions. So all you're going to say is squat got much better with the heels up. She's a 2 because she did it properly. I would note the pelvic control issues with the heels up, but she did what she matched the Gray Cook criteria, so I would say that was a 2. But that could mean other things, but that's a good guess for now. It could be dorsiflexion restriction, I would call it. Not necessarily tight calves. We don't know the answer to that yet. It could be a mechanical restriction and not a muscular restriction. This is all the stuff we're going to talk about how to interpret this when we do the corrective exercises. Okay, so we've just learned something. The next thing we need to do is the lunge. So we'll do the lunge next on the board here. And so the lunge, you need to measure the height of her tibial tuberosity. So just stand normally. So I find the tibial tuberosity and I measure the height off the ground. And yours is little 15. Okay.
Just in case I didn't think it was little.
All right, 15. So you're gonna have her back foot on the starting line, toe on the starting line. Front foot, your heel just gonna go right beyond the 15, so you can see the 15 behind your heel. Okay. So I just learned something right there.
Wait, I can do this.
Okay, so this is all. So the FMS, I mean, is pretty much just scoot a little bit forward for me. Okay, good. All right, so I just learned, I mean, when she first tried to get on there, she was a little bit unstable. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but she's basically on the far left side of the board with that foot and the far right side of the board with her back foot. And her back foot is twisted a little bit, so it's not straight. And so that's something that she's trying to widen her base of support, right? So she's trying to make it wider by getting to the far edge of the board and twisting her back foot a little bit. So that teaches me a lot there. So then you're going to take the stick, you're going to put it on her back, so it's touching her sacrum, her thoracic spine, and up at her head, and she's holding it correctly. You want to hold in the 2 lordotic curvatures, lumbar and cervical. Ponytails are no good for this. You gotta have the side ponytail like the 80s. Okay. That's what you need. Okay, so you want to say basically from here, from this position, you want to lunge forward, touch your knee to the board right behind your front heel, and return right to the starting position again with your heel flat. Do 3 of them nice and slow. Okay, so what do we look for in this one? Let's get you to do it so they can see it again.
Get on again.
Could do it with the same feet. That's 15. So you see the second she did that, look where her back foot went. It was straight, and the second she took a step out, it twisted.
You're not trying to.
No, she's not. But this is the thing. Like she is a good subject because she's not trying to hide it from me, right? And so that told me a hell of a lot right there. So she hasn't even done anything yet, really, but I learned a lot about how she moves. Okay. So the movement looks good. That getting in position, we got some work to do. So go ahead. Okay, and see how that foot's almost twisted even more, the back foot. So she's trying to make herself more stable in that inline position. But the movement looked okay, right? What were the, does anybody have the criteria available? What were the criteria for the lunge? Touch it directly, did it? No, it was a little bit off to the side. Okay, good. So that wasn't quite perfect. What else? The pole remains vertical, so it had a little bit of forward tilt to it. So that was something we wanted to look for. It did stay touching all 3 places though, so I didn't see it come away from her sacrum. So that was good. Torso movement. So did we see any frontal plane torso movement? When she first got on there, a little bit, but when she moved, maybe not so bad. So that's where you have to watch it again carefully. And this is where it's really important when you guys do this. You just watch it for the first time, so you're like, did that happen? I don't know. And so get them to do 3 reps, record it from 2 angles, and then just play it over and over again. So you can look, okay, torso movement. So watch it like over and over and over again and say, is this torso movement, is it not? And it's good to watch it like in your group so that you can really see these things happening. So then obviously you would switch to the other side, to the other leg forward and other arms up and down, but it's the same basic test. So we won't go through that one. Okay, so, and it's really important that you do score the right and the left because we know that right-left imbalances. So if I'm good on my right but I'm terrible on my left, that's a really big predictor of injury. So we need to make sure we score it on both sides and see if there's imbalances between each one. Yep.
Does the FMS really care if you do it in shoes or without shoes?
Generally, you want to. Grey Cook says you want to do it in the footwear that you would train in, or where you would do your movement in, basically. And so I learn a lot by watching people's feet move when they do stuff. So if I have one-on-one time with somebody, I'll get them to take off their shoes to do some other tests, like single leg stance type tests, so I can watch their foot, especially in the hurdle step, which is coming next. I sometimes do that because it tells me a lot. But his official criteria is do it in whatever shoes you're going to train in.